Hi everyone and welcome to the Cauldron. So we've got a lot to talk about tonight with Lisa, Marion, Claire and myself. So we're going to start off on the eve of a possible SNP Green Deal, and we know what that means for our rights and the rights of women and girls. It's not good news, and nor is it good news for free expression. We can see these politicians pushing through the parliament policies that will be to the detriment of every single woman and girl in Scotland. And there's very little we can do about it. Nicola Sturgeon won her majority on the back of an independence vote, and now she's hand in hand a Patrick Harvey enabler, as I would call her, because these queer theory ideas come from Patrick Harvey, and Nicola Sturgeon's enabling him. The question is why? I think she doesn't have the support in her MSPs, as we saw before Christmas when we were in the 6 words debate and they rebelled. So perhaps it's because some of her MSPs might have the principles to stand up to her and to stand up for women and girls. Although I haven't got high hopes of that, but let's see what we can do. So to that end, we are going to have to spend a lot of time fighting this government and fighting their plans to destroy our rights. And so we'll be having a demo at the Parliament on the 2nd of September at 11 AM. And we're going to make some noise and let Nicola Sturgeon and Patrick Harvey know that women won't wish. So with that, there are even more horrors in store in this show, I can tell you. And we go to the first horror, which is the latest guidance on education. And to bring us up to date with that is Marion Calder.
Well, thanks, Denise. Gosh, what a week. Of all the weeks for kind of schools to go back, all the kind of the parents and head teachers and teachers have had to wrap their heads around this new guidance, which was issued last week. Now, it's been in the press all over the place. It's been on the radio, TV. And we've had goodness knows how many parents and teachers get in contact with us asking or highlighting their concerns. In short, this is new guidance, non-statutory, that was issued by the Scottish Government to all schools. So this is going out to primary and secondary. So it goes to the whole age range, 4 to 18, about how they should treat or handle the transgender ideology. So going down to how they would treat kind of boys and girls who identify as opposite sex or believe that they are the opposite sex. So this goes from 4 to 18 all the way up. Some of the most concerning aspects out of this has aspects of the Named Person Act, which was roundly thrown out several years ago, and the fact that these children are kind of are to be encouraged to speak to their teachers, and their teachers within this non-statutory guidance are to protect their secrets, for want of a better word. So if a 4-year-old up to an 18-year-old says, hey, I identify as opposite sex, these are my names, I would like you to change the name in the register, I want to be able to wear another uniform, which in itself is not a huge thing, or kind of identify and go into other different sports teams, that the teachers who take those views of the child, and if the child actually states, I don't want my parents to know, is actually can listen to the child and protect that child's wishes, which breaks every type of what's it? Safeguarding, that's the word. Safeguarding, big red flag. So there's that. But also within it, it gives guidance on chest binding for females, of which in any other country would be kind of, it could be deemed as self-harm or self-abuse. So actually kind of tells about how you can handle this. The books, the resources that I mentioned in this are full of gender stereotypes, that if you're like a blue, you could be a boy, if you like girl, if you like pink and playing with dolls. So the whole 70-page document, 70 pages, to me, 70 pages document that basically is just full of ideology, and the language used in it is purely from the other side. This should not come out from government. It's riddled with terms of sexes or gender is assigned at birth. I mean, it's absolute nonsense. And what would I'd say to any teacher or head teacher that's watching this, that receives this, is to rip it up and shove it in the bin, because that's what it is worth. This would, and if you follow guidance in this, you would possibly kind of open yourselves and your school, your department up to future legal challenges. Rip it up, chuck it in the bin. There's better guidance out there that's available from Transgender Trend and Sex Matters, of which we'll teach you, we'll show you the best way to handle all competing rights. So that's been an absolute horror show, in short.
But wasn't the government guidance withdrawn last year, or because it was disadvantaging girls? So this new guidance, has it corrected that or made it worse?
Well, to be fair to Shirley-Ann Somerville, who put her stamp on this, 2 years ago this guidance was removed because it was deemed to actually break the rights of females, girls. And it had various lines in it saying a boy that identifies as female must have the right to actually change or use the girl's spaces. And the girl that may complain about it would need to be removed from that space and perhaps be re-educated. So any girls complaining about a boy, biological male, in their space, bear in mind there's no such thing as a child under the age of 16 having any form of surgery or anything like this, thank goodness, complaining about being in their space would have to be re-educated and removed. So there was multiple complaints, lawyers looked at it, in-house Scottish Government lawyers looked at it and said, yes, I think that we are at risk here. So albeit the Scottish Government didn't withdraw it, they basically said, oh, well, we're just going to create our own and we'll update it. It's taken 2 years for this newer. It's 4 pages longer than the original guidance. And basically they've said, oh, well, you know, if you mean a boy wants to be in a girl's space, do you mean, well, you know, just work around it. So they've taken out the must, but it's really not changed. They've just tinkered with sentences, and there's the odd line in it saying the needs of all should be considered. But these are throwaway lines at the end of all these paragraphs saying about what rights this very small aspect have against, the vast majority. And it's full as well of kind of posters or resources that you could put up celebrating how many genders there are. There's 2 sexes. So these are posters that could go up from primary right through, and it doesn't differentiate between the kind of ages. So it's an ideology that's getting pushed into schools, and it doesn't necessarily support the needs of a child that actually does suffer from body dysphoria at all. It doesn't address the fact that this is actually a medical condition at all. It's just as if this gendered souled or blue or pink brains are kicking about. It doesn't address it. It's just, yeah.
But surely if we have now protection of gender critical beliefs, then if parents are gender critical, then surely they should be able to withdraw their children from this kind of indoctrination, because
oh yeah, I mean, if I was a parent, especially with kind of the younger children, I'd be making a beeline to my school and saying, do not teach this ideology to my child, their rights to actually believe. And something that most people don't actually think about is especially when you've got very small children should be able to play and express their gender. Could pretend to be a dinosaur one day, or Barbie, or whatever. Do you mean Spider-Man? Do you mean a dog, a puppy? I mean, we know this happens at 4 or 5 years old in this. But what are we doing if you have those who are actually then, who parents, do you mean, have allowed the kind of, right, my child wants to be known as they, and they're gender neutral, or the opposite sex. What are we actually teaching our children? That they're to actually kind of ignore their views, what they can see in their eyes? Are we actually telling 4 or 5 years old, 6 years old, that they can actually change sex? So that is something that doesn't seem to be ever kind of addressed in this. I mean, it's always about, oh, don't worry, and you should respect the pronouns, respect that. I don't think anyone's got any problem with a change of name. But when it's actually saying, no, now he is she, or now she is he, and we're talking to kind of young children, what are we actually saying to them? We're actually teaching our own children that it's a possibility that you can change sex. So we have to be really careful where we're actually going with this. It's not as kind of simple and just be kind and be nice as it's being made out. This really needs to be carefully handled. And any child should be able to kind of have a nickname, play what they want. Gender neutral uniforms are really not an issue. I mean, no one really cares. I mean, I think we should have that. Those days are gone now when girls would have to wear skirts and the blizzards, you know, kind of summer socks. But so why not? But the ideology of this should be questioned, and parents should use their parental responsibility and actually go in and actually say, no, this is my ideology. It's not my belief. Please don't teach this. Or if you are, please excuse my child. Or let me know when your lesson planning is going to happen so that I can make alternative arrangements.
So Claire, you're very interested in the educational aspect of this ideology that's getting pushed onto the children. What are your views on this latest guidance?
Yes, so I've listened very interested. I'm very interested in what's just been said. I mean, I know this week I spoke to a number of teachers who actually spoke to me about the issue with 4-year-olds effectively being able to choose their sex, as if that's some sort of choice. And they are also, you know, really distressed about this and about potentially having to teach this in school. And they're afraid for their jobs. So if there are any teachers out there watching this, there are gender critical Twitter account they can join. It's a safe space to discuss this with other teachers who are also worried about this ideology in their schools, but feel for whatever reason they cannot raise their head above the parapet and say, look, we would rather teach factual biological fact from, say, Sex Matters or Transgender Trend, which has amazing stuff that they would teach in school. So I think the idea that a 4-year-old child could actually think they're the opposite sex, and that schools would be required to keep that fact from their parents. You know, just think about the implications there. That is removing parental rights. And we as parents, we know our children, and children, you know, they just don't know what they're doing a lot of the time. And as Marion says, one day they're a dog, the next day they're a space person. You know, that's just childhood, for goodness sake. We are confusing these children by introducing all of this ideology into school. So anyway, as today I spent a little bit of time looking at the Scottish Government, the relationship and sexual health content. And I followed a few links, and I found an organisation called Zero Tolerance. And I followed some links there, and I have to say, this is, I mean, I'm going to investigate a bit further. Maybe next week I can talk a bit more. But within this guidance, well, within the guidance that they are providing to the Scottish Government, and this is guidance for schools, I'll just read to you what they define a woman as. Okay, so it says a woman is anyone who identifies as so, including cis women, which is, I'm now a cis woman. No one asked me. I'm a woman. I'm not a cis anything. Cis is not a thing. Those whose gender identity as, this is them explaining a cis woman, those whose gender identity as a woman is the same as the sex they were assigned at birth. No, that's observed at birth. A female born has a vagina, a male born has a penis. There's two sexes, that's it. That's all that needs taught in school. And then it also says, and trans women. So they're basically saying that anyone can be a woman. I can't believe this is in schools, and it's just driving me crazy. I mean, I looked in their documentation, I had a quick look. Sex is mentioned 18 times. Gender, which seems to have replaced all sense and all anything to do with sex, 281 times. Now, what is gender? That's another question we need to be asking ourselves. Sex, it says, is assigned at birth depending on the genitalia and or reproductive functions a person is born with. And then gender, it says, relates to the performance and or expression of social and cultural constructions. Now, is that not just stereotypes? You know, what is going on? This is confusing and this is wrong. So that's what I've got to say on it. No to 4-year-olds deciding they are the opposite sex, and no to keeping information that is highly worrying from parents. You know, if your child is thinking they're the opposite sex at 4, I want to know about that. And I think every other parent would want to know, needs to know about that. And schools, as you know, we need to stop lying to children. Children cannot change sex. End of.
And so, yeah, I agree. And it worries me a lot about the stereotypes. And I feel like it's a way of pushing girls to be more feminine, to be like females. And with this, it's like a 1950s sex stereotype. And who does that benefit? It only benefits men. And that worries me.
Yeah, I'll just say as well, they've got a key terms sheet. It defines woman, defines sex, defines gender. Do you know what it doesn't define? Man.
Yeah.
Doesn't define.
Yeah. This is all an attack on women. If it was an attack on men, it wouldn't be happening. You know, for example, if you self-ID as a man, you don't get the title. You don't get the inheritance. Your brother still does, I'm afraid, ladies. So, Lisa, what's been grinding your gears this week?
Actually, this stuff has been really infuriating me. I think, especially, you know, the language that they're using. They're saying, like, we don't have to tell your parents. And for me, who else says these things to children? We don't need to tell your parents. This is our little secret. And obviously another thing that's been bothering me is about Joan Smith. She has lost her position today as the co-chair of the Mayor of London's Violence Against Women and Children board. So she held this position for 8 years. She's wrote to Sadiq Khan. As far as I'm aware, there's been no update. She stated that trans women are also entitled to safe refuge, but female victims of male violence should not have to share spaces with male-bodied people. The last time I checked, she'd had no response. So essentially, in my opinion, she has lost her job as a women's activist for being a women's activist. So that was another thing that had really bothered me this week. But I think the children thing is kind of what's really bothered me the most. Obviously, I've got young children. It terrifies me to think that they'll go to school and their teachers will sort of be allowed to encourage them to lie to me, that they're going to be like, you know, my child might play with a girl's toy, and just because that one silly little thing, it's not even silly, it's just something children do to explore themselves, that one choice he makes could then be quite detrimental to the rest of his life choices. They want to slot them into little boxes, like boys do this and girls do that. And we've got to let children explore and be children. We've got to just let them explore the world the way they want to. And that's been really bothering me this week.
Okay, so another thing that's going on is Marion Miller's case, which is a case against free speech and against gender critical women in general. And it could be any one of us that got held up on this charge. But unfortunately for Marion Miller, she's the one that they picked on. So Marion, the other Marion, Marion Calder, you might be able to give us an update on what's happening with Marion Miller.
Yeah, the Marion thing is a bit confusing. I mean, I saw Marion on Tuesday, so we're referred to as Big Marion and Little Marion. Because we both kept turning around at the same time. Yeah, again, Marion's plea hearing has changed again, so that's the second time round. So now we have, it's due for August the 31st at Glasgow Sheriff Court, again at 9 AM. And whether that's going to go ahead, who knows? Do you know what I mean? This is long-term ongoing, so you can imagine what this is actually doing to Marion's nerves. Do you know what I mean? You get all het up, you get psyched up with what's actually going ahead, albeit it's just a plea hearing. But you get yourself organised, and then with just several days to go, it's changed again. So there's no other really further update to that, to bar the fact it's August the 31st. So whether that will go ahead, I'm unsure. So we'll just have to watch this space.
Any
Oh,
theories
trauma.
about why the delays?
Say again, sorry,
Is
Denise.
there any theories as to why there keeps being these
There
delays?
could be very serious, but because I'm kind of quite close to it, I wouldn't want to kind of theorise it too much as such. But it is what the Procurator Fiscal, they are reviewing it, and she has got a date for August the 31st. That's it. So.
Well, give her our best wishes, because obviously, you know, it does prey on all our minds, because myself particular, no, could have just as easily been me. I think there was a bit of confusion between the two names, Marion as well, which possibly didn't help. So there's one small bit of good news happening, or a good possibility. Strangely enough, although Patrick Harvey is the leader of the Greens in Scotland, along with another woman called Laura, I think, but really basically I think Patrick Harvey's the leader, and he's very into queer theory, and he's taken the Greens away completely from caring about the climate into caring about Patrick Harvey and his ideological obsessions. The Green Party of England and Wales are slightly different, and they are having a leadership election, and one of the guys that are standing is called, I'll read his name out because I was looking to get it right, Shah Ali, and he is actually, I don't know if I go as far as saying he's gender critical, but he's definitely on women's side. So a lot of women in England and Wales are signing up to join the Greens, because if they sign up, they can vote for this guy. So fingers crossed, because if the Green Party of England and Wales elects a man, Shah Ali, who is on our side, it will be fantastic. And I think one of the Green leaders resigned over this guy because of his views, which is kind of another example of the ideology that's in all of these parties. But the wonderful thing about it would be is, obviously the climate environment is so important, you know, to the world's future, and to have a Green Party that was actually believed in science and sex would be, you know, and biological sex would be fantastic. So fingers crossed.
It would be a miracle, Denise, a miracle in Scotland if we actually had that.
Oh, that's not going to happen in Scotland. I mean, you know, it's not going to happen in Scotland. But what will be good is if it happens in England and Wales, because, you know, we can point that out, I suppose.
A very good message, a very strong message that women are not going to just accept this. And sorry, I just butted in there a minute ago. I think they have to join the Green Party, is it by the 27th of August, in order to vote? I think
shortly, you're right, yeah.
So join.
I
actually heard somebody from Scotland had joined, and they were waiting to see if they would get a vote or not. It might be worthwhile.
You can, Denise. Yeah,
really?
You definitely can. Yeah, there's the two parties are completely separate. The Scottish Greens and England Wales Greens are completely separate parties. So there's absolutely nothing to stop anyone in Scotland from actually joining the Wales Green Party and voting.
Right.
I'm going to join.
Right, folk, you know what to do. So this would be a great thing. So that's one small glimpse of light in a otherwise unremittingly dark world for women. So what else would we like to talk about tonight? Anyone got final thoughts? Claire.
So as you know, or may not know, I am currently suspended, I think is the word, from Twitter for stating biological fact. So I'm appealing that a couple of times a day, every day, and they will give me it back because I have not said anything abusive. I've been very respectful. But I just wanted to mention there's a woman who is actually taking Twitter to court for having her account suspended numerous times for no good reason. So perhaps people might like to consider adding to her crowdfunder, and her name is Heather Findlay, and it's on crowdjustice.com. Heather Findlay, FINLAY.com. It's case, I beg your pardon. Heather Findlay case. So if you can give to that, please do.
Okay. And Marion, final thoughts from you?
Just to reiterate what I said at the beginning, to any kind of teachers, head teachers, parents, if you haven't heard about this guidance, please look it up, or contact Film in Scotland, and we've done quite a few bits on it, and we're happy to fill you in. But read it, 70 pages. And then once you have, get in contact with your school and tell them to chuck it in the bin.
And Lisa?
I just wanted to remind everybody about the demo outside Holyrood on the 2nd of September at 11 o'clock. And I think we need as many women there as we can get, so that Nicola Sturgeon knows that we are there and we will not be taken lightly. We are a serious, serious bunch of women, and we will not waste.
Okay, thanks everyone for joining us for our Cauldron show, and see you next week. Bye for now.